Really want to put to rest the bad reputation that sales gets in every industry, because at the simplest form, sales is literally just finding innovative solutions to help people solve their problems.
Mhm.
So make sure you like, subscribe, follow along, and shoot us any DMs of any questions you have, anything related to sales. So Nick, I'll open it up with you. You came in with some slight sales background
Mhm.
before we joined up, but you've done sales in a couple different things. I've done sales in like 10 different things. I can say that from my experience, didn't matter if I was selling somebody a lawn tractor or television or, investments, insurance, anything. It's the same exact thing in every industry. It's just been trying to figure out how I can help people and how you
Mhm.
can help people. And I think the best people at sales truly go in with no intentions and just address the client's concerns and figure out what their problems are and just use what they have as a solution to solve those problems. And I
Mhm.
think if you can do that, anyone you work with will never even realize that they're being sold anything, which they really shouldn't, because at the end of the day, you're just like, you have solutions to people's problems. So I guess talk me through, how easy that was for you to catch on, how quickly you realized that, how you still use all that today.
Totally. So I think bigger than just the product that you're selling. And a lot of people, don't get me wrong, product knowledge is extremely important.
For
Anytime you're
sure.
selling, you need to know your product better than anybody else knows your product. But what's even more important than product knowledge is people knowledge and knowing who your prospect is and understanding, like you said, what are the needs and wants of that prospect. And then your job is to take your solutions that you have and fill that need or want. So really when you're sitting down with any prospect, the first thing before you're even thinking about product, and in almost 99% of sales scenarios, you don't have one singular product. If you have one singular product and you're selling to people,
Find something else.
it's very difficult. Yeah, it's really difficult. Or you have to be very strategic with who your prospects are. You might have a really, really small niche of prospects that you could sell to. But if you have an array of products across the board, there's almost always there's a prospect that's going to fit into one of the products that you have. So the first thing that you're doing, and what we call it a lot in our business, is a fact find. The first thing that you're doing is when you're doing that intro call, or when you get somebody on the phone or you get somebody on the Zoom, it's understanding you're letting them speak and you're letting them talk, because that's where you're going to extract the knowledge of, okay, here's a pain point. Here's a pain point. Here's something they want that they don't have. Here's something that they said to me regarding price or budget or specific thing that they want from the product or what they're trying to accomplish. You're trying to extract as much information as possible from the prospect when you're sitting down that original meeting. You should not, to your point, be thinking about, oh yeah, like I have this life insurance structure where it's $100 a month and I'm going in like trying to sell that. You have no idea what this person wants, and you have no idea what their needs are. And if you're going into sales purely product based, where you're like, I have this product, and you're not caring about the prospect, that's then when I think sales gets a bad rep, and where sales has gotten a bad rep, because it becomes salesy, pushy, like, hey, this person's just trying to shove this down my throat and they really don't care about who I am or what I want. But
like the words that like you should never use is like quote, proposal, pricing, all those different things. Like those are just all huge red flag / salesy things, to where you don't need to use any of those words, because if you truly are caring about what the person's problems are, like it should identify exactly what you need to use. If you've heard enough, if you've learned, just speak to your point, if you've actually got the information you need from listening to them, you shouldn't need to propose anything. It should be extremely clear what the right solution is.
Totally. And I think part of your job as well is, a lot of times in any state, even if somebody is comfortable with you, you're going to have to do some work to extract what those objections are so that you can handle them on the upfront. Because the majority of people in any decision-making process, and it gets worse as the ticket item gets higher, people are going to be less likely to make an objection to you on a $10 purchase than they are on a $10,000 purchase. There's
10 million.
Or $10 million purchase, whatever it is. There's going to be levels to the objection game, because I mean, in your seat or in anyone's seat, a $10 decision is not like a $10,000 decision. So again, understanding what you're selling, what your product is, understanding who your prospect is, and then it's your job to ask those questions. It's your job to extract the objections, because ultimately what you're trying to do is you need to formulate how you relay information, knowing that information. You don't want to go into it blind and be like, okay, this is my pitch and this is what I'm going to say every single time, because the majority of the time you might even point out pain points in your so-called pitch that the prospect is not going to like, and it's going to immediately turn them off. They're going to be like, yeah, no, you know what, this isn't for me. And you didn't even really get to what you're trying to explain, or explain the product and why it helps them, because you had this like cookie cutter pitch approach. So
the biggest close of my life is still us being able to get a deal done in the Washington, D.C. market when we did that large acquisition. And we were sitting together at a picnic when the business straight up called me and said, hey, we're not going with your firm. I didn't say, oh, thanks so much, like wish you the best of luck. I knew that nobody else was going to be able to do it the way we could. So I said, you clearly just must not know enough about us, what we bring to the table. And I did whatever I had to do on the phone to get one more meeting. And then I spent 3 days building out a giant packet, just betting on myself. I'm like, I'm going to stack myself to the top of the list, compare myself to whoever it is I'm being stacked up against, and just being willing to have the confidence that, you know, we can go in there and do the better job. And went in there and turned that no to closing that deal. And that was a pivotal moment to get our firm to the step that it's at today. So that, you know, and that was an $11 million deal. So somebody that's at the simplest level trying to sell somebody an $8,000 roof, and the person tells them, no, we're going to go to this other person. If you go back, show up the next day and be like, look, like, I totally respect that you want a different direction, but I want to make sure that you have all the information because I know we have the best product. That person's probably going to respect the hell out of you for taking because initiative is a commodity in 2025. If they're dealing with someone that's taking the initiative, going the extra mile, bets in theirself, clearly believes in his passion and what they're doing, I feel like that's enough to win you the business damn near half the time, of just displaying your passion, your care, your energy. Like, people can read like if you're genuine or not a mile away, versus if you're not genuine and you don't believe in what you're doing and what you have passion in. So I would say that's the biggest thing, is if all else fails, being willing to suck up the self-pride and just put it all on the line, bet on yourself at the end of the day, and just like literally show up, you know, get on the phone, is whatever you got to do to get in front of that person without being desperate, but just coming at it from a standpoint of like, I'm worried about you and your future if you do not choose us for whatever it is, because we know that nobody else can work like we can. Nobody else can deliver like us. So biggest thing is just confidence and the self-belief that you can get it done no matter what, and truly believe in your heart of hearts that there's nobody better than you. And if you look in the mirror and you don't think that, that's okay too, because now you can say, okay, if someone might be better off with somebody else, identify your weak spots and then go back to the grindstone and improve on those areas until you are the best. Like, that's something that like you look at every day, is how do we get all of our advisors the best tools, like as efficient as possible, the best things available to them, to arm them all with all the tools they need to be the most dangerous person out there. Yeah.
And I think you have to be aware of those tools, especially when you're sitting in a closing meeting and knowing what you have to your disposal, because always in a perfect world, you're able to have a meeting with a client and you've done a great job of understanding their objections, understanding their needs and wants, and do exactly what you talked about: provide the solution, move right to the solution, implement that solution. Right. Sometimes and I know a lot of people out there are probably going to say, well, they always say, I have to think about it. Obviously, that's the most common objection ever. The number one thing that I would give anybody who is dealing with that objection all the time is never leave a meeting, especially a closing meeting, if you are not able to get that client or that prospect to commit to whatever your solution is right there, then and there. It's a big decision. Let's say it's a multi-million-dollar decision, or they're looking to do a $50,000 renovation to their backyard. Let's say you're a contractor, and it is a really big decision for that prospect. Never leave a meeting without a next step action item. The worst possible thing that you can do in sales, and the way that you will close no business, is you say the words, yeah, don't worry, I'm going to follow up with do a follow-up call, or I'm going to follow up with an email to you. Dead. You're smoked, because that literally is just, you're basically accepting that objection, and you're allowing them, again, your order taking, you're allowing them to dictate the pace in which your sales process goes, which you absolutely cannot do. At the end of the day, again, we talked about in the last episode, you have that little bit of chip on your shoulder. This is your process. This is the way that you close business. You know that If that client were to go somewhere else, they are going to get less service. It is a disservice to them if they go to somebody else. So, and if you truly believe in what you do, that it is your job for them to truly understand what they are buying, what they are purchasing, what they are getting, and that they have a need for it, and to provide them with that solution is what your job is as a salesman. So if you are dealing, and I know a lot of people do, with, hey, I need some time to think about it. Hey, I need to talk this over with the wife. Number one, at the beginning, there should never be you should never not have a next step. And to be honest, in person always. Now, if you're a virtual salesperson and you're doing business across the country, whatever, I would definitely encourage getting on Zoom. The follow-up phone call does not work. Even follow-up Zoom, we don't like to do it at all. It's always follow-up in-person meeting, preferably in their home. Because if you can get somebody to meet inside of their home and you can sit at their kitchen table and they bring you a drink and you're going through the product array and you know exactly what they want, and you're able to hey, let me come over and show this to you. And you scoot up next to them and you're acting like a friend and you're truly intensive. You're not just sitting across from them with a PowerPoint slide behind you and you're pointing to stuff like that. You're truly like, hey, like, look at this.
You're
like,
connected.
You're painting the vision too. Like if we go back to let's say the backyard example, you're a contractor, you're putting a pool in and doing a landscape, and hey, look at this. Look at your landscape. Like, look at this. Imagine this. We're going to have this here. This is going to be here. You're going to have all this leveled out. You're going to have this beautiful pool in here. Our team's going to come in. We're going to do this in X amount of time. We're going to do this. The cleanup's going to look like this, and paint the picture for them.
Yep.
That's truly what's going to drive them to a decision, because going through numbers, going through a proposal sheet, going through a slideshow of what you're going to, in a very informal way, you're really going to struggle. And it's going to be very easy for that prospect across the table to be like, yeah, you know what, I'm not going to do this right now, or maybe now's not the right time, or I'm going to go with this other guy. When you are able to establish true trust with your prospect and they see in your eyes the energy and the passion that you believe, more often than not, no matter what it is, or no matter what you are selling to them, they're going to go with you purely based off of belief of like, this person is probably not going to mess this up because they care so much. Like, just looking this person in the eye, I know they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that this turns out the way that I want it to turn out.
We're so fortunate in our day and age where, like, I mean, you look at some of these companies, especially these like really high level, like cybersecurity, these AI companies, these tech consulting firms, where like they're getting billion-dollar valuations and they have like 50 people on their team. Like, you couldn't do that before. Like, the only way you were getting billion-dollar valuations is you have thousands of people in your organization. We're so fortunate because we can leverage technology, and with all of the continued automations and efficiencies that we have at our fingertips, like, that wasn't the case before. Like, it's like the people who used to fight like, oh, email's never going to be a thing, or like everyone's going to continue to read the newspaper to gather news, or everyone's going to continue to watch cable to gather the news. Like, there's always going to be something changing. And I think like your ability to adapt and change quickly and like actually do it is crucial.
A hurdle you mentioned too, because most people listening are going to be the small business owner with 2-3 people. Your people will push back crazy in the beginning and be like, nope, won't work, can't do it. It's going to disrupt this and that. It'd be too hard. And it is your job as the leader to lift their eyes from where they're standing and even point them 10 feet ahead. And just like, most people see a bump in the road or a hurdle or a crack in the sidewalk and their eyes are just fixated on that. But just like Nick said, like after 60 days, 90 days, 3 months later, not a big deal. 6 months later, you kind of laugh about it, to how like you can't believe that you even thought that that was going to be a big deal. And then a year later, you literally forget about it. So it is your job as the leader to keep people focused on the horizon and let them like brush off the resistance to change. And if people can't adapt, can't change, then like they've got to get off the boat. And like, that's your job as a leader to like make sure that everybody's rowing in the right direction. And if people are trying to row in a different direction, then you got to get them off the boat.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's 100% right. And yeah, I mean, this was like kind of a quick one. I feel like we went over a lot though, but like, I think that's like the base of today's conversation is like, look for anything that you can make a little bit better, no matter how uncomfortable it is, or if it's going to be a lot of work at the beginning. And I can almost promise you that, like, if done correctly, it is going to allow you to get over that next hurdle, whatever that next hurdle is going to be, and continue to allow you to scale. And this is not to say like you can't run an organization with no people. You will always
for sure
need people.
And we're not trying to like replace people with
definitely
automation.
Not.
Like,
no.
It's going to like amplify the output of our people.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
It's like in this process that we're doing, like we're adding people still, but it's like the people that we're adding in our existing people, rather than doing like 4 hours of monotonous work that we can now automate, like they can focus on higher level tasks, which then brings more opportunity into the firm, which helps obviously everybody involved. So like that's the focus. It's not like people get nervous. They're like, oh, is AI going to take my job? It's like, well, AI shouldn't take your job. Like if you can truly add value, AI should only help you add more value to what you are doing in your organization if used correctly. So definitely is not like replace your people with technology, because that's the complete wrong way to go about it, because then you'll get steamrolled by businesses like ours that still meet people in person, still have human touch. That's where people lose it a lot. But
find a way that you can maximize your efficiency and your people's efficiency using technology. And like, that's going to continue to help you level up and scale.
Number one thing that I would change or do differently in the beginning is making sure that if you are going into business with other people, make sure very, very early on, you make sure that you have the exact same objectives, timelines, risk tolerances. It's almost like going into a marriage. It's actually more like final than a marriage, basically. And you have to make sure that you align closely on those things, because just like a marriage, if somebody has, you know, different desires, different wishes of what they want out of life, in a business, if somebody has different desires or wishes of what they want out of that business, it's going to create friction. There's going to be conflict, and you know, it's going to be a push and pull as far as like what you're trying to do. So, you saw it like from your perspective as well.
Definitely. And I think we're fortunate that early on in the business, we were able to kind of correct that, and we were able to align ourselves with each other as well as our additional partners that have now come into the firm. And we take that very seriously now. Any partner that's going to be joining at this point, obviously, they have to be adding significant amounts of value to the firm, and they have to be bringing that value. But at the beginning, totally, and I'm sure a multitude of people run into it. A lot of times people are like, hey, I want to start a business with my friend. And you may have a great relationship with that friend, again, as a friend in your personal life. But when you have a relationship in business, it is completely different. And similar to what you said about a marriage, it's like checking those boxes. Like when you're really going to make a decision of getting married to a girl, like, does this align not only today, not only the next year, not only the next 5 years, but like, do we align for life? Because majority of the business you're going to get into, they are going to last 20 plus years, or your entire life in multiple generations. So that's very, very important, I think, that you identify that early. And I think we were fortunate that even though maybe we didn't identify that early, we were able to kind of make it right.
Yeah, it was like really easy. Like it's almost like sometimes too in like certain business situations, like you honestly don't have the choice right off the rip too, and you just get like put in a situation, you see an opportunity, you got to take what you can get to. So like I don't want people to think like almost like some people just never get married because they never find the perfect person. I don't want everyone to think about this too from a standpoint of like, you know, I'm a total proponent of partners and partnerships in businesses, and I think you're, you know, always better with multiple people than alone. So I think if you're looking for like the perfect business partner and you haven't found that perfect person, you should still try to find somebody, because I think you're going to be way better off from just resources, capital, output,
no doubt,
ideas, perspective, point of view, so much upside to it. But I think we were fortunate enough to where like early on, before we became business partners, we got to spend so much time together to where I got to basically, you know, share what I wanted, and you got to make a decision of like, you know, do I align with that? Do I have the same objectives, the same goals? So like, I'll say that like you and I went into business together pretty much eyes wide open of like very clear objectives, what we both wanted out of this, timelines, etc. So, and like we talk about it like every day. So I think just like in marriages, if you don't talk about, you know, what you think about things, like honesty, like opinions, like what you want out of it, it's the same in business. I think you got to just like constantly be evaluating, letting people know like where you're at, like what you think about things, and not be afraid to be honest about everything. And I think like communication in business is just as important, if not more so, than like a relationship.
Completely agree. So number two, the second thing that, at least on my end, that I would say would have changed at the beginning is, even if you do not have that much money at the beginning,
spend the money to hire quality people who have experience. And we ran into that honestly, it took us a little bit of time to kind of figure that out.
There was a good 18 months of
a lot of turnover. And we really thought that we were going to be able to find people that had zero experience at a very low salary and develop them. And the problem with that is one, it's very difficult to find people who have drive in the first place. Even people who have experience, it's very hard to find drive. And at
most people who have experience have no drive.
Exactly. At the beginning, when you're building something, your most valuable asset, or I should say your employee's most valuable asset, is effort. If you have someone that's positive and can give effort at the beginning, that usually is going to move you along, at least to a certain point. Now, once you start getting into the higher levels, you're going to need high level skill, high level expertise, no doubt. Starting there is what I believe is a much easier journey than trying to grind it out and find the people that have no experience and you're hiring on low salary, than going out, really spending time in the due diligence process. Like we used to always say we'd hire out of positions of weakness, where we would get all this new business and then panic and like, oh my goodness, we need somebody else to fill this role, and then panic hire somebody in like a week and not go through a true interview process, not really try to understand if their objectives aligned with what our vision was. And on top of that, it was like, okay, let's go try to find the cheapest person we can possibly find to fill this role. So the number two thing, I think it's better off that you go pay somebody $100,000 that really knows what they're doing than hiring 3 people at $35,000 a year and really getting expert level knowledge, because that expert level knowledge early and somebody who aligns with your vision and your goals is going to take you a lot further than just turning over $35,000, $40,000 employees all day long. You're going to spin your wheels doing that.
Follow us on all of our socials, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Until next time, stay disciplined.